Alright, think we got everybody now. Awesome. All right, well, welcome to leadership. Everybody excited? Last term? Busy term. Gonna be a busy term, right? All right, so today, we are gonna do our orientation. So we'll do our orientation first. And then we will go ahead and cover chapters 4 and chapter 12 out of your text for leadership. Um, and actually, before that, we'll go through the syllabus after we do orientation. So I will do a brief introduction of myself so everybody knows who I am. My name is Jennifer Martinez. I am an online adjunct instructor for Fortis. I've been with Fortis for 4.5 years. I was on the Richmond campus for a little while, then I was at their Norfolk campus for a little while, and then I moved to San Antonio, Texas. And there is not a Fortis in San Antonio, so I transitioned over to the online platform so I can continue to work with Fortis students. Primary background, excuse me. I've been a nurse for 25 years. My primary background is in long-term care and pediatrics. So I love the very old and I love the very young. And in some cases, they are very similar working with those two populations. So, pretty cool. I have 4 kids. Um, 2 grandchildren, one on the way. So my third grandchild will be here in January to make their appearance. Don't know if we're having a boy or a girl yet. I have 3 German Shepherds. I will warn you, one of them likes to say mom every once in a while. And so I promise you, I am not ignoring a child. It is my dog. And so if you hear her whining in the background, it's because she's a whiner. Don't know how to stop her from whining. So, all right. Any questions for me before we get started? Everybody seemed to have gotten into the Zoom okay. No issues there. All right. Awesome. All right. Any questions before we get started? All right. So I will share my screen and we will do our orientation. Actually, hold on. I'm gonna do something real quick. All right, so everybody can see my screen. You see the nice little orientation PowerPoint. All right, so again, welcome to leadership. Congratulations. You're in your last term, getting ready to graduate at the end of the term. So you should all be very excited. I'm excited for you. So you have had online courses in the past. So this is not, should not be a new platform for you. But online learning just means that you're going to use the computer and have internet access to participate in the educational program. Allows us as online instructors to interact with students through the course using those online resources. It also allows our, instructors to provide student guidelines, lead the learning activities, provide feedback about your progress. The course will include weekly homework assignments and learning activities. There will also be quizzes and exams, and you are responsible to complete the required coursework every week. And you do get to meet students from other Fortis locations. All of your what I was going to say, all of your assignments due dates are already loaded into Canvas. Um, and so I will also add into Canvas on your calendars. I'm going to add the exam and HESI review dates into your Canvas calendar. This way you have ready access to them. I know sometimes it's hard to remember when things are, so I figured if I put them on your calendar, they're readily there for you. So again, my name is Jennifer Martinez. I am your online instructor for leadership and management. I will be your first contact for any issues within the course. I am available by email. You can message me through Canvas. I have also added my phone number onto the syllabus cover sheet. You can call, you can text, whatever you prefer. I can also help you, or suggest ways to help you improve your performance in your online course. I'm going to give you feedback about your grades. I am here to help you to be successful in this course. If you need additional tutoring, have additional questions, need any assistance, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty open availability, unless I am in class. And usually can work with anybody's schedule. Um, remember too that this is a professional setting, so we're going to practice respectful communication at all times. Again, my contact information is in your Canvas shell. Sorry. It's under the About Your Instructor. I have also uploaded the syllabus cover sheet in the announcements. So you can download that and have access to it. You can put my phone number into your phone, whatever works best for you. If I cannot help you, or I can't answer your question, or there's another concern, Dr. Mary Tenza is the course lead for leadership and management. And so if you need her contact information, I will be more than happy to share that with you. The online dean is Dr. Darlene Brown. Her contact information is here. She is the National Dean of Online Nursing Education. So if I can't help you, Dr. Tenza, you can go to Dr. Brown. Her email address, her phone number are listed on the orientation PowerPoints, and I will be putting these in the announcements so you have access to that PowerPoint. And then of course, if you have campus courses or campus components, there's any issues with those, like your sim, your lab, your clinical, and things like that, then you will reach out to your campus instructor first. And then of course your campus dean will be able to help you with that as well. I don't know your like, there's a bunch of different campuses. I don't know who the contacts are, as far as your courses, on campus. But if there is anything that I can help you with your online courses, please feel free to reach out to me. When we look at communication etiquette or netiquette, just, you are allowed to have your own opinions. You are allowed to have your own thoughts. Just, state those in a courteous, positive, respectful manner. And always be mindful of how you express humor, emotional statements, just because those particular can be misinterpreted. Keep your comments relevant to the discussion topic, and also be considerate of others' experiences, feelings, perspective of things. Make sure that you use proper language and titles, no slang. When we're answering discussion questions, you want to kind of answer those like you would if you were, I don't want to say like writing a paper, but, just keep it very professional. Use proper, grammar, things like that. No typing in all caps, right? That can be perceived that you are yelling. So again, that's just proper grammar, right? Making sure that you're using good grammar and good punctuation. The online courses do have specific start and end times. So we are here on Monday afternoons from 2:30 to 5:15 Eastern Standard Time. The only Monday that we will not be in class is going to be Labor Day Monday. The live sessions are mandatory, so it's just like your campus courses, right? You have to go to campus to go to your on-ground courses. These are the same, except it's in a virtual environment. Course activities include discussion questions, projects, papers, case studies, quizzes, exams. The discussion boards, you will do your initial post by Wednesday, and then you need to have 2 replies to classmates by midnight on Sunday. Due dates are according to the syllabus week. They are posted already in your course shells. Again, if you have any questions about your due dates, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. When we look at academic integrity or standards of student professional conduct, academic integrity, all incidences of academic dishonesty and violations of academic integrity will be disciplined. So such acts cannot be listed exhaustively, but samples include cheating, plagiarism, which is the submission of the work of another person for credit, or failure to properly cite references for any work which is not original to the student, copying the work of others, allowing another student to copy work from you, unauthorized use of notes or materials in exams, including talking to other students, forging or altering assignments, unpermitted collaboration, giving or receiving aid on a take-home exam or other academic assignment under circumstances in which a reasonable person should have known that such aid was not permitted, allowing others to copy or use work that is not his or her own, providing answers from graded assignments to others, or submitting AI-generated assignments. Can't even say that word. So the Code of Ethics serves the following purpose. It is a succinct statement of the ethical values, obligations, duties, and professional ideals of nurses individually and collectively. It is the profession's non-negotiable ethical standard, and it is an expression of nursing's own understanding of its commitment to society. And I know that you guys all have heard of the Nursing Code of Ethics before, right? Through the American Nurses Association, so you are aware of the Code of Ethics. And so one of the big things that, with the wonderful world of technology that is available to everybody now, there are sites out there that do help to promote cheating. So using those sites does not promote honor, ethics, or integrity. Those sites are being monitored. If you did not know that, they are monitored. So if you are found on those sites, that will place you on a heightened monitoring of your work for potential academic integrity violations. Referencing these sites or submitting work found on these sites will result in a 0 for the assignment, which in some cases can be enough to cause course failure. A second incident involving these sites will result in a course failure. Posting, downloading anything from any of those sites also puts you at risk of being dismissed from the program. They will notify your campus and upper administration if you are found on those sites. And if they're not listed in your list of resources in your course shell, just don't use them. So some of the sites are like Studico, Course Hero, Stuvia. There's a bunch of them out there. I just, my suggestion is to stay away as much as possible, stay away from them. Avoid, putting yourself in a position where you might be, questioned about those sites. Do not submit any AI generated assignments either. Late work policy. Please submit your work on time. Late work is only accepted with prior approval from the instructor. So if something happens, you don't think you're going to get your assignment turned in on time, please feel free to reach out to me. Let me know what's going on. I cannot help you if I don't know what's going on. It's like a preemptive strike, right? If something is going on that, you feel like you're, not going to be able to meet deadline, um, it's always better to be upfront and forward before something happens versus afterwards. If an assignment is late 1 to 7 days, there will be a 10% reduction in that grade. If it is 8 or more days late, then a 0 will be assigned or be given for that assignment. When we look at attendance will only be recorded during your assigned live session time, just like now. Zoom actually has a log of you logging in. And so it keeps track of who is on the meeting. So it's very easy to go back and see who was in the course and who was not. Attendance is taken during the live session. So I checked everybody as everybody was checking in, just make sure that your full name is always on your screen so that you do get attendance. You have to be on camera the whole time. Camera can't be pointed to the ceiling, can't be pointed down to your keyboard. Have to be able to see your beautiful faces, during class. Anyone at work, driving, or in a healthcare setting. So doctor's room, doctor's office, hospital room will be removed from the session. Okay, so you have to be either on campus, at home. If you don't have internet at home, you have to go to the library or something like that. Perfectly understandable. But you cannot be in a car. You have to be in a safe location. If you go on camera and do not come back on camera after being asked, you will also be removed from the session. Once you are removed from the session, you are not allowed back in until the next course. All right, so just be aware. I can verify your students' time in class by, again, looking at those login, logout times on Zoom. And any attendance missed is going to be recorded in 15-minute increments. If you do not post attendance 14 days in a row, you will be dropped without notification. There is no makeup for missed attendance. And we'll go back to attendance in just a few minutes. Oops. So attendance is taken again daily by the instructor. It's going to be turned over to the registrar before the end of the class day. Any early departures, any tardies, any, class cuts will be recorded in those 15-minute increments. So even if you're out for less than 15 minutes, you're going to get docked the 15 minutes of time. Students with chronic absenteeism in excess of 20% of the schedule hours for a course may receive a failing or reduced grade for the course. So be very careful about your time. I don't know what your Mondays look like. I don't know if you have other classes, whether they're on ground, on their online courses. Just be very mindful that time can add up rather quickly. So you don't want to miss any time if you do not have to. So students who are absent more than 20% of the scheduled time will receive a full letter grade deduction at the end of the term. So, if you're sitting at, an 80, that can drop you down to below passing. So just don't put yourself in a situation where we're going to miss too much time. The attendance letters will go out at 5, 10, and 15%. And so it does, that is that reminder. However, you guys usually can tell how much time you have missed from a course. So again, this is your last course, right? We want to do everything we can so we can graduate in October, right? Get pins, go take our NCLEX, go out there and start working, right? That's what the overall goal is for everybody. So the 7 key steps to success. First one is review work that is due each week. Again, like I stated earlier, I have put the dates in for all of your assignments so that you know when everything is due. Complete the reading assignments each week. This is going to be really important. Make sure that you're looking in your books and you're reading the chapters. This course makes it a lot easier if we can have dialogue and talk about some of the things that we are going to discuss throughout the next 12 weeks. Make sure you do your lessons each week. How many of you, and you can just raise your hand, how many of you have attended live reviews for your exams and your HESIs? Awesome. Did you find them helpful? Awesome. The ones that were not able to attend the live sessions, did you guys watch any of the recorded review sessions? Yes. All right. So I'm going to sit here and encourage you as much as possible to attend those live review sessions. They are very helpful. One thing that's different about attending a live review session versus watching the recorded versions is that if you do have additional questions, then you have the ability to ask, right? Rather than maybe having to send me an email and say, hey, I don't understand this, or sending me a text, right? And then waiting for the response. So that sometimes is beneficial to you. So I am always going to encourage you to attend those live review sessions if possible. There are 3 of us in leadership and management that will be hosting the live review sessions. So whenever, if you do have the ability to attend the live reviews, I'm gonna always suggest that. Carefully read directions and rubrics to all assignments before starting them. And this is something that I'm very big on as well. When you are getting ready to do an assignment, whether it's an individual assignment or a group project, please make sure that you are reviewing the rubric, that you read the directions, you look at the rubric, so that you can use the rubric as a guide when you are completing your assignments. It does make it, a lot easier in some cases. It also makes sure that you don't miss any pertinent information that needs to be included in that assignment. Complete all of your assignments, whether it's a paper, a CJ Sim, an NCLEX question, discussion board, whatever it is. It just helps to, get those concepts into your brain. So, to help you remember the concepts. It's there to help you. Again, this is your last term, right? And so getting ready to take your exit HESI, then eventually going to take your state boards, right? Anything to help solidify information is going to be good for you. And then of course your quizzes and your exams and study. Make sure that you are logging into class 4 to 5 times a week. Make sure you stay connected and engaged within that course. Again, the discussion questions, your assignments, make sure that you're reading all of the announcements that are posted. I will generally post announcements on Saturdays. So you'll, unless something else pops up during the week, then additional announcements will be posted as well. Submit all your assignments on the week when they are, on the week when they are due, including your discussions. And then towards the end of the week, maybe when you're submitting your assignments, you want to go and you want to look at the assignments that are due for the following week. Procrastination. I am going to tell you, I am the world's worst procrastinator. Anybody else a procrastinator? I am the world's worst. I trust me, I'm my own worst enemy when it comes to that. Um, and so, I have schedules, I have set, alarms. Not only do I have the planner on Canvas, but I have a handwritten planner as well, as to when everything that I need to do needs to be done. Whatever works best for you. Again, I know that this last term is going to be very hectic and you have a lot of things that are going to be on your plate. And so, excuse me, time management skills are going to be your best friend. However it is you do that, whether it's using a handwritten planners, setting reminders in your phone, using your Canvas calendar, whatever works best for you to try to stay ahead of the things stay ahead of things as much as possible. Keep in contact. I want you to be successful this term, and I'm going to do everything in my power to assist you in being successful. But if I don't know what's going on, then I can't help you. If there is a situation that is going to potentially prevent you from being successful, please reach out so we can have a conversation and get a plan of action into place so that we can help you to be successful. Whether it's additional tutoring, whether it's reaching out for, additional assistance, whatever it is. So again, please keep in contact. You have my email address, you have my phone number, you can message me through Canvas, whatever it is that, however you want to get in touch with me, please feel free to reach out. Make sure that you have a reliable internet connection as well as a computer or a laptop. Make sure that, does everybody take their tests remotely? Does anybody go take them on campus? All right, so everybody has pretty good reliable internet, no big issues. All right. Make sure, what was the other one? Oh, and that was different class. Never mind. Nobody has any prior history, like any issues with ExamSoft, anything like that. Everything should be good to go for this term. All right. Again, maintain a schedule for completing your coursework. Identify a quiet place free from distractions, and of course, read all of those directions carefully. All right, so some other tips. Come to class prepared to review the concepts. Again, even if it's just, go through a quick review of what the chapters are about, so that you have an understanding or have an idea of what the concepts are for the week's lecture. Attend the review sessions. Again, I will put those on your calendars for you so that you will know when those are. If you have any issues with concepts, on the syllabus cover sheet, my office hours are Wednesdays, at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If those hours, if those hours do not work for you, please let me know and we will schedule another time. If you need tutoring, again, same thing. If you can't come during the office hours, send me some days and times that you are available and we will get extra tutoring set up. And then if you have any technical difficulties logging into any of your Fortis platforms, that is when you want to reach out to tech services or IT. So again, other weekly review sessions, those are not mandatory, but highly encouraged. These are sessions that are held outside of class time by instructors. Again, my office hours are 3 o'clock on Wednesday, same Zoom link. The review sessions for your exams and HESI. Again, there's 3 of us that will be doing live exam reviews as well as the HESI review. So you have the availability to attend any of those live reviews. And we also do keep attendance or keep track of attendance at those live reviews. Again, it's not punitive. We just know we want to see who's coming and who's not. Um, they're not mandatory. They are just very strongly encouraged. Um, Students that participate either in tutoring or the reviews tend to have higher testing scores as well. So again, it's just something to help you to be successful. So we know about KGA. So your 80% of your KGA for leadership is going to be your exams, your quizzes, and your HESI. So there's 3 unit exams, which are going to be 55% of your grade. There are 5 quizzes, which is 5% of your grade. And then, of course, your leadership and management HESI, which is 20% of your grade. The other 20% are your discussion questions, your papers, your NCLEX questions, case studies, practice exams, as well as Kaplan assignments. We don't have any Kaplan assignments within leadership, but that would be these are just examples of what your additional 20% for your homework is. Course and assignment grades for weeks 1 through 5, your homework grades will be turned off. All right, so you will just see your KGA grade for the first 5 weeks. Week 6, we will turn the homework grades on, so that allows you to see what the impact of any missing assignments is on your KGA. And then week 8, we will turn the homework scores back off. And so that allows you to decide, what's going on with week 8 and moving forward. So you'll be able to see just your KGA. And then homework scores will remain off until HESI scores are remediated. Your combined score in quizzes, unit exams, and specialty must be 78% or above before any credit is given for your homework, right? So you have to have that 78% before we are going to add your homework grade in. A minimum passing grade of 78 is required for successful completion of the course after homework scores are turned on. So not homework can make or break you, right? So doing your homework is going to, if you're, it can help you. If you're above that 78, it's going to bump your grade up. If you're below 78, and you don't do your homework, right, then your grade is going to drop. So please turn your homework in, do your homework. For your exams and quizzes, you have to have 2 devices for each exam. The laptop to run the exam and then your phone to be on Zoom. Make sure both are fully charged or you have a charger available and you're plugged in and ready to go. If you go off camera while in the exam, you will receive a 0 for the exam. There are no excuses for that. If you go off camera during a quiz or exam, then, unless you're done with the quiz, then you will receive a 0. Quizzes. Quizzes are part of your KGA. They are completed during class time with myself as your proctor. They are designed to be given at the beginning of class. That allows us as faculty insight to the concepts the students are struggling on. It also requires you as students to come in prepared for the class. There's only one attempt on the quiz. You have 10 questions for each quiz. There are 10 questions for each quiz. You have 15 minutes to complete the quiz. There's math on your quizzes as well. Make sure that you submit your quiz when you are completed with it. Any quizzes that are taken off camera that are not proctored will receive a 0. All right, so you can't, if you're late for class and you're in the waiting room, you can't get the password and take the quiz without being proctored. Quizzes cannot be made up for any reason. All right, so I understand, things happen, you get sick, you may miss class, things like that. Unfortunately, quizzes cannot be made up for any reason. So I always, try to be here for all of your scheduled classes so we don't miss any quizzes. Exams will be scheduled and given through ExamSoft. Again, you're going to log into Zoom on that second device. You'll sign into ExamSoft. You'll, read the exam description so you know what the requirements are. Then when everybody is ready, we will begin the exam. And then when you are finished, you'll click on save and upload. And then once once you submit, you should get like that green check mark, right? That shows that it has been submitted and confirmed. And then make sure that you log out of the testing site when you are complete. You are only allowed one attempt, right? During your exam, you can't stop, pause, and resume. If you are having any technical issues during the exam, stop the exam and notify me. All right, so if something goes on, you lose internet, it won't let you to, submit an answers or things like that. Stop the exam and let me know. We are not allowed to use scrap paper. All right, so no pen and paper. You need to have a whiteboard with a dry erase marker. Or if you want, you can use a sheet protector with a dry erase marker. You can reuse those as well. And then the board must be erased at the end of the exam. So it has to be completely blank when you start your exam, and then of course, at the end of the exam, erased. Exams are timed. So make sure that you're paying attention to the time that you're using during the exam. So all exams are 50 questions. You have 75 minutes to complete your exam. Anyone with accommodations needs to notify me at the beginning of the term. So not here in an open forum. If you have accommodations, please send me an email and let me know that you have accommodations or a copy of the accommodations letter so we can make sure that everything is set up appropriately for you. Just because you had accommodations last term doesn't mean we know about it, right? That is, personal information. So if you had accommodations last term and your instructors knew about it, right, that doesn't mean that I have that information, okay? Notifications of accommodations less than 10 days before an exam may not be able to be granted in time. All right, there's a process for accommodations. So that's why I said, if you have accommodations, just send me an email, let me know. Exams are given during our scheduled class times. And so exceptions are only with written approval by your faculty and then copied to the National Online Dean. So not taking an exam during scheduled class time will result in an absence. So try to avoid that. If for some reason you need to miss an exam, or emergency happens, please notify me immediately, so that we can avoid, any deduction, any missed exams. Exams can be proctored with a faculty member on campus. That's why I asked if everybody takes their exams on via Zoom. If you prefer to if you take your tests on campus with a faculty member on campus, please provide 72 hours notice. It still needs to be done during the scheduled class time, but I also need to be able to get in contact with the instructor that is on campus that will be proctoring the exam. Um, Again, 72 hours notice if you are going to do that. Again, exams are proctored via Zoom. You must be on camera the whole time. You must show your photo ID. You're going to do that 360 of your testing environment. So looking at the desktop, the walls, all sides of the computer, the chair, the floor, all of that good stuff. If your ears are covered, you must show your ears, make sure there's no earbuds, anything like that. If you have any religious exceptions, discuss those with me, on a sidebar, so that we can make sure that appropriate accommodations are made. Again, don't assume that, instructors know all of the individual requirements. Missed exams are held to the late work policy. So exams missed without prior notice will be a 0. Exam missed for personal reasons will result in a late penalty. If you've notified us, exams missed due to an emergency will require documentation of the emergency. That documentation is submitted to the National Dean of Online Nursing Education, and it must occur within 24 hours of the exam. So if something happens, best thing is to just send Dr. Brown any documentation that you have. Documentation must be presented prior to the exam being rescheduled. So, emergencies happen. We understand that. Provide the documentation. As soon as the documentation has been provided, then Dr. Brown will let me know, and then we can schedule your exam. It has to be made up within 7 days of the class time. So class is on Monday, you have to make it up prior to the next class, right? Which is going to be the next Monday. Any issues? This is a big one for me. Let me know if there's any issues that are going to prevent you from being successful on an exam before the exam. If you take an exam and you do poorly on the exam, and then you send me an email and you said this, and this happened right before we took this exam, there's nothing I can help you with after the fact. That's why I always be preemptive strike, right? Let me know prior to the exam. I can help you before, I cannot help you after. Goal is for you to be successful. All right. So it's a two-way street. We have to work together, right? If I know what's going on, I can help you. If I don't, then there is nothing that they can do for you. So again, want to make sure that you're successful. So keep those lines of communication open. When you're taking your exams and your quizzes, review and follow instructions. All of the nursing exams and quizzes are timed, right? You only have one chance to take them. If you start the exam or quiz, you have to complete it. You won't get another opportunity to attempt the exam or the quiz. So you'll click on the link and then you'll follow the directions for the quizzes in your Canvas shell or through ExamSoft for your exams. If you're having any technical difficulty, do not continue or try to continue. Notify your instructor immediately, right? Everybody know how to use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. Yep. All right. You guys can use the chat feature as well. So let me know if there's any issues during a quiz or an exam. I need to, when you guys are taking your Canvas exams, I can review the log. That will, help me to see how many times you stopped viewing the testing site. I can see how much time that you've used to take a quiz. I can look and see how many questions were actually viewed. And things like that. And if necessary, I can give a resume code to re-access an exam. I will not allow a retake of an exam due to technical problems or other physical or emotional issues if the majority of questions have been answered or if time has run out. Again, there's something going on, please let me know prior to the start of the exam so that we can figure something out to, make sure that, we don't want you to do bad on an exam because of something that happened that's outside of your control. With your specialty exams, they are given on campus, right? There's one attempt at your leadership and management HESI. So depending on how your campus schedules your HESI, it can occur anytime during HESI week, which is week 11. The HESI is 20% of your testing grade. And then the benchmark always is going to be 900 for your HESIs. Remediation is mandatory for your HESI score, right? So you have to do 100% of that remediation time. And you should, kind of go over all the concepts that you were missed. And time of your HESI remediation time depends on your HESI score. As we get closer to HESI week, I will post the HESI remediation guidelines in the announcements. Always want to just stress this. Even if you score a 900 or better, it is still a minimum of 1 hour remediation. All right. So even if your conversion is a 99.9, which I have seen, all right, just remember you still have to do that 1 hour of remediation. Remediation packets are to be submitted by 1 a.m. Tuesday of week 12. All right, so whatever day you take your HESI, if your campus offers it Monday through Friday, just remember that you have to have it done by 1 a.m. on Tuesday morning so that we can finalize everybody's grades during week 12. If you do not do your full remediation time, you will get a 0 for your HESI. So please pay attention to those HESIs, remediation times. I will post announcements. I will send emails if I feel like we're getting a little bit close to the day and time of the remediation being due and I don't see any progress. I will start posting announcements and sending emails. So just be forewarned. I will do that. You must show your exam ID. For your exams, you have to again be on a camera at all times and must be able to see your full face. If you fail to show a photo ID or you're not fully visible at any point, that will result in an exam and or course failure. Again, let me know if you need any additional help, anything, just feel free to reach out to me. Homework assignments. Review your syllabi, and we're going to go through the syllabi after the orientation PowerPoint. Look at what you need in order to complete the required task, whether it's reading, whether it's a case study, whatever it may be. Put your homework on a calendar when it's due. Organize according to the most current due date. Make sure that you know how much time it is going to take you to do the assignment. That's usually one of the biggest blocks, right? You think you can get an assignment done in an hour, and then you sit down to take it, and then you realize that it might be 2 or 3 hours in order to do that assignment. So make sure that you know what the requirements are. And then title the assignment per course nomenclature. So there are examples on how to title your assignments prior to submitting them. And this is just, you can use calendar, however you want to do it. Again, late work is not going to be accepted without prior approval from the instructor. And that's anytime within that 7 days. If it is not submitted on the due date, if there's something that is preventing you from completing your assignments, doing your work, I need to know ahead of time. If the instructor approves submission of a late assignment, then there'll still be a point deduction. So 10% for 1 to 7 days, 8 or more days, it will be a 0. Late work will not be accepted without prior written approval from the instructor. It's still, and then it will be graded along with other weekly submissions for the next grading period. So again, all grades for the week, except for some of the big papers, are usually going to be done. All grading should be done by Tuesday at midnight. Your NCLEX questions, we'll go through these. I know you guys know how to set up your NCLEX questions, but when we go through the syllabus, we'll go through your NCLEX review questions. Make sure that you are selecting the appropriate topics. Does everybody know how to print their PDF or save their PDF with their scores in order to submit into Canvas? Perfect. Make sure you submit the number of questions required on a single submission. And so whatever it is, if it's 25 questions, if it's 50 questions, whatever your score is. So if it's 25 questions and you submit and it's 23 correct, then that is what your grade is going to be. Remember with NCLEX questions, which I'm sure you guys know that you can do those as many times as you want, right? Submit the highest possible score to maximize your points. So just keep that in mind. You have, with the NCLEX questions, utilize your course tax, your online resources, the percentage score applied to total assignment points available. So again, you want to make sure that you are maximizing your points for your homework as much as possible. There is no bonus points for getting the most correct or doing more. All right. So just do, if you only needed, to submit 25 questions, right, and you do 50, it's not going to give you any additional points. Okay. So don't, I understand some people are a little bit overachievers, and that's okay. But you're not going to get any additional points. So just do what you need to, for your NCLEX questions. Making sure that you follow the instructions carefully. And then your paper assignments. Like I said, we're going to go through the syllabi as soon as this is complete. So we'll, look at this. Your professional development plan. You also have your NCSBN position paper that will be due this term. Unapproved websites. So that's like your Studico, your Course Hero, things like that. Students using unapproved websites for research on homework will receive a 0 for the first offense. On the second offense, you will be failed from the course with a recommendation to the campus for dismissal from the program. So again, Course Hero, Studico, Quizlet, all of those things. If you don't know how to use your resources and the Learn, talk to me, or if you have a learning resource manager on site, they're excellent resources for you as well. That online library through Fortis is tremendous. It has you have access to so much information on there. So if you don't know how to use it, feel free to reach out to me and I can walk you through it. Other tips, APA formats. Use the current edition of your APA manual, learn resources. Purdue OWL is another good resource too for APA formatting. Only use nursing journals. Make sure you have sufficient resources for review. Your resources shouldn't be more than 5 years old. All right. If they're more than 5 years old, generally they're going to be outdated. Unless, of course, you want to, quote Florence Nightingale. She hasn't had, anything written in the last 5 years. All right, that's going to be a little bit different. But when we're looking at current and best practice, evidence-based practice, that kind of thing, you want to stay within the last 5 years. Make sure your research relates to your topic, like nursing leadership. You want to summarize those key points in your own words, right? So that you're paraphrasing. You can use quotations. Just be very limited with the quotations that you use. It's always paraphrasing is always better. Even if you paraphrase, you still need to cite that with an in-text citation. And, of course, you want to give your, rationale for, what you're stating as well. And that you're really looking for resources that are supporting what your thoughts are. All right, so again, we're going to go back to being successful in this course. You want to communicate, plan, attend those review sessions, tutoring, reading, using your course research resources, prioritizing. So with that being said, just some questions that, for thought. Are you prepared to sit for the exam? So this is something that this isn't something you want to wake up in the morning and be like, oh my goodness, I have a test today, right? Keeping up with your studies, reviewing, will help you to stay prepared. All night cramming isn't going, generally speaking, doesn't allow, for great success on exams. What remediation could your online instructor review with you to help you prepare? So when I ask if there's questions, if um, we're having a discussion, we don't understand, ask questions, please. Please don't be quiet. Ask the questions. When you're, other things like when you're doing your homework assignments, was there anything challenging or difficult for you to understand? That is when, to ask those questions, ask for clarification. Other things like how will continuity of care once the patient is discharged from an acute care facility influence the health of the client? How does the environment influence the physiologic adaptations of the diet, of the body, sorry. Do the requirements for a nurse change based on the surroundings they work in? What is a nurse's accountability, whether on or off duty? So these are some of the topics that we're actually going to cover in this class. All right, so that is the end of the slideshow for orientation. Any questions about the PowerPoint slides? No questions. Everybody is good. Thumbs up. All right, so let's go ahead and take a break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to do introductions, and then, or we're going to do this introductions. We're going to look at the syllabi, and then we'll do the 2 chapters. So be back at 3:40. Excuse me. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go through the syllabus real quick. All right, has anybody looked at the syllabus yet? Yes, all right, cool. So we have 30 hours per lecture. Out of class work is about 60 hours, which is about 5 hours per week outside of class. And so you can go through the course objectives and your student learning outcomes. Your research, your required learning resources. So your success in practical vocational nurses from student to leader. Nurse Think, it's your CJ Sims. Then you have your reference packages that you also should have received. And then of course you have your LRC, the online library through Learn. We talked about attendance. So let's go. Here is so there's 3 exams, which are 55% of your KGA. Your specialty exam is 20%. Your quizzes are 5%. Your professional development paper is homework. It is 7% of your homework grade. Your NCSBN position paper is 8% of your homework grade. Your NCLEX review questions are 5% of your homework grade. So keep that in mind when you're doing your homework. So all right, so for week 1, we're going to talk about historic nursing leadership. And so it's going to be chapter 4, how practical vocational nursing evolved 1836 to present, as well as chapter 12, which is the nursing process. This week you have your first discussion question that is due. It should be open. You should be able to complete that by Wednesday. Again, remember to do your replies by midnight on Sunday. Next week you have quiz 1. So one thing that I want to say about quiz 1 and quiz 2, and I just can't remember off the top of my head. I think quiz 3 as well. Quiz 1 and quiz 2 will be given at the end of class. Okay, they will not be given at the beginning of class. Reason being is because some of the topics that are going to be on quiz 2 are not covered until next week's readings. All right, so just know that quiz 1 and quiz 2 are going to be given at the end of class. And then you will have your second discussion question due in week 2. And week 3 is going to be quiz 2, and then you have your first set of NCLEX questions. And so the directions for your NCLEX questions are in your course modules as to which content to choose. There's only 25 questions that are needed for your discussion question or your NCLEX questions this term. All right. Week 4, you will have exam 1. So in week 3, the live exam reviews will be held. And you do have they have been already posted. I am going to add them to the calendar in Canvas. All right, so that they will pop up for you. And then in week 4, you do have discussion question 3 that will be due as well. In week 4, we'll have quiz 3. You'll have your second set of NCLEX questions due. Week 6 is exam 2, and that is also when your professional development paper that is due as well. In week 7 is quiz 4 with discussion question 4. And then in week 8, your NCSBN position paper is due. Your next set of NCLEX questions. Week 9 is quiz 5. Week 10 is exam 3. Week 11, of course, is going to be HESI week. with your next set of NCLEX questions, and there is no homework due other than remediation in week 12. So again, make sure that you are looking at your syllabus, that you're keeping up with any due dates, so that you get everything turned in on time. Always let me know again if there's any issues with anything that's going to prevent you from being successful. Please reach out to me and let me know. So before we get into this week's readings, which is again chapter 4 and chapter 12, I want to know a little bit about all of you. So this is your last term in nursing school. So if you don't have to share anything that you don't want to share, okay? So, if you just want to introduce yourself and at a minimum, tell me what campus you are from, and then we can go from there. You already know where you want to work in nursing. You can share that as well. Share whatever you want. And if anybody wants to volunteer, otherwise I can just go down the list.
I'll volunteer.
All right.
My name is Stefania. Hi, everyone. At the Scranton Fortis, and I am excited to get this last term done and over with.
Yay. Awesome. Thank you. I love your name. That was my great grandmother's name, was Stefania.
Thank you.
Are you
Go
going?
next.
I'll go next.
Oh,
You want to go,
Marquita,
Brianna?
go ahead, Marquita.
Okay. Hey, I'm Marquita. I'm at the Norfolk, Virginia campus. And just like Stefania, I am ready to get this over with. Mhm.
All right. Brianna, do you want to go next?
Yes, I can go. I'm Brianna. I am at the Norfolk campus in Virginia. I know you mentioned what do we want to do. I want to go somewhere in like maternity, so I don't know if I want to do L&D, mother and baby, or NICU just yet. Kind of had a little experience with all of it, being that I have NICU sisters. Um, I mean that's really pretty much it.
All right. Awesome.
I'll go next.
All right.
I'm Shakola. You can call me Sha. I'm in the Fortis Scranton campus, and I only want to pretty much take care of them coming into this world or leaving as well. So either maternity or geriatrics is where I'm gonna go.
Okay. Okay. That's a big difference. Big difference. Okay. Awesome. Well, welcome. All right. Who wants to go next?
I will. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Latrice Davis, and I am at the Cincinnati campus. And just like our lady said, I'm excited for the final term, and just waiting on the finish line. So good luck, everybody, this term.
Awesome. Thank you. All
I'll go next.
right.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mariam Ajob, but you can call me Mariam for short. I'm at the Westerville, Ohio campus, and I'm interested in pursuing a career in OB nursing. Thank you.
Okay. A lot of OB nurses in this group. Okay. All right. Who wants to go next? Oh, you're gonna make me call on names.
I'm Jeree.
All right, Jeree.
My name is Jeree. I attend the Norfolk campus,
Okay.
and I would like to go into labor and delivery. I'm really looking forward to the last term. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Labor and delivery. I will tell you that is one field that I never wanted to go into. And I love babies. That's why I do peds. Peds was always my favorite. So good for you. Good, good, good. All right. Anybody else want to volunteer?
I'll go.
All right.
Hi, everybody. I'm Devana. Um, like you all said, we're all just excited to get these last 12 weeks knocked out. Not sure where I want to go after this quite yet. I'm thinking like peds, possibly,
So,
or like med surge, probably.
okay. What campus are you at?
Oh yeah, I'm at the Columbus Westerville campus.
Okay. All right. Awesome. All right.
I'm
Ashanti.
Jory.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm Jory.
Hi, Jory.
I'm at the Orange Park campus. I have been a CNA for 10 years. I'm ready to move on. So I'm definitely ready to get this final term over with.
All right.
And yeah,
Awesome. All right. Ashanti.
Hello, I'm Ashanti. I'm at the Orange Park campus. I don't know exactly what specialty I want to do outside of when we graduate, but I know that the end goal will be either CRNA or nurse practitioner.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Very cool. All right. Who do we got left? We got Sahara.
I'm Sahara. I go to the Scranton campus. I don't really know what I want to do when I get out of here. I'm leaning a little bit more towards psych, but not too sure yet.
Okay. All right. Cool. My mom was a psych nurse. Let's see. Avion. Is it Avion? Did I say that right?
It's Avion.
Avion. Okay.
I'm Avion at the Westerville campus, and I want to go into cosmetic nursing because I have my cosmetology license.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Very cool. I see a lot of positions for like the nurse injectors, or I don't know what they're called, but the ones that do that's really cool. One of at one of my previous schools, one of the nurses that I worked with, she did that. She got her, I guess it's like a separate certification or something that she was able to do, and she did that as well. That's cool. All right, Janelle.
Hi, I'm Janelle. I'm at the Westerville campus in Ohio, and I want to go into pediatrics.
Oh, awesome. So we got a lot of mother baby pediatric nurses here, and then we have aesthetics, and that's awesome. Okay. Possibly med surge. Okay, psych. Cool. All right, and Joseph.
Hi, my name is Joseph. I go by Joey. Um, from the Norfolk campus, and I'm just my main goal is to become an RN and then end up in mental health.
Mental health. All right. Okay. So we're gonna deliver babies, take care of babies, and deal with their mental health issues. And then any cosmetic on the side. That's awesome. You guys, that's awesome. Um, anybody have, did you your what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know the word I'm looking for. So your choices, was this related to, and not everybody has to answer, the choices like Avian was saying that you were a cosmetologist, right? And so that's kind of where she wants to go. Did like your clinical experiences influence where you want to work? Like I know Brianna, you shared your sisters were NICU babies? Is that
Yeah,
what?
so I got two sisters who were both NICU babies. I think like a month or 2 months early.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I don't remember like what caused them to become early. I think my bio mom told me that my sister just so happened when she wanted to come early. My stepmom and her daughter, I'm not sure why she came early. And then just personal experience, like I have two daughters and I gave birth vaginally with my first one, but then I had to get a C-section with the second one. And being that I seen that in the clinical field, by the time I had her, it was kind of like nerve-wracking because it's me, but actually seeing it, it was like, oh, this is pretty cool. So
Okay.
yeah, it kind of drew me more towards it.
So do you get to see a C-section?
I got to see two. No, I got to see one C-section and two vaginal births.
Oh, awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. I was the student in OB that hid behind everybody else. So when they were giving assignments to like go with the laboring moms, like I was just hoping that my instructor would forget that I was there. So that I could go into the nursery and just play with the babies. So yeah, I saw one C-section once when I was in nursing school. So interesting. Yes, but that's cool. So, it's interesting how our life experiences affect, right? The type of nurses that we want to be when we come out of school. I will be honest with you, when I was in nursing school, I had worked in hospitals as a teenager. I started off as a candy striper. Yes, I had the little white and pink striped vest that I wore. Hold on one second. And I worked in the kitchen in the hospital as well. When I became a nurse, I had no desire to work in a hospital, but I also said that I would never work long-term care. And I got my first job as a LPN in long-term care and absolutely fell in love with long-term care. So it's interesting how, you think you don't like something and then you end up doing it anyway and loving it. And then I went into pediatrics after long-term care. So, it's interesting. My mom was a psych nurse, so God love you psych nurse people, wannabes. I'm not a psych nurse by any means. I love dementia and Alzheimer's. That part of psych nursing, it fascinates me. But the other parts of psych, my mom did mostly like state psychiatric facilities, things like that, state prison. She worked in a state prison for a while, so a lot of mental health there as well. But it's interesting how our lives kind of influence, what we want to do when we come out. And that's one of the great things about nursing, right? Is there's so many options for us, things that we can do.
My mom's a prison nurse too.
Oh, really? Yeah. In Florida? Are you in Florida? Yep.
Yeah, she's at the state prison.
Which one?
FSP, the state.
Okay.
She helps perform she helps prepare them for death row and stuff like that. And she's
Oh,
the
wow.
point person, they all come through, and right now she's just on the floor. It's the medical team. She
Okay.
was just working as the social services director of the female prison, and then she
Mhm.
decided she didn't like being behind a desk anymore, and she wanted to go back to being inside the prison. So
Okay. Very
yeah.
cool. My mom was at Tomoka State, which is in DeLand, Florida. So, but yeah. So again, welcome. I'm excited to be here with all of you for this wonderful next 12 weeks we have together. Hope we all learn a lot. And what I was mentioning, I want to go back to attendance. Everybody, have you guys heard about your live reviews, whether it's Kaplan or ATI live reviews yet? Do any of them
I was
interfere
going to
with?
ask about that.
Yeah, so if
Ours
you,
is next week, Monday and Tuesday.
so hold on, so Devonna, you are at Westerville, so your live reviews are Monday and Tuesday, you said?
Yep, next week.
All right, so that is gonna be Devonna, Janelle, Avian, Miriam, right? Everybody, they got everybody, okay. Is that ATI? You guys do ATI or Kaplan?
Kaplan.
Kaplan. All right. Does anybody else know? Norfolk, do you guys know when your Kaplan live review is?
How do we see that?
They didn't post like a announcement in Dean's Corner or anything yet
Or your
for,
instructor of capstone would give it to you.
yeah, so whenever you have capstone, maybe your instructor will know.
Ours, I was gonna say ours is the 19th and 20th, that Tuesday and Wednesday of August.
Tuesday, Wednesday, August. Oops. I put it on the wrong one. August 19th and 20th. 19th through 20th. All right, so that doesn't, okay, I'm gonna write it down. That's Scranton. Cincinnati. Latrice, do you know when yours is yet?
No, I'm not sure. They haven't posted anything about it.
All right. What about Orange Park? No? All right. So that covers
I
everybody.
know we're Kaplan, but I don't know like when our testing is. It says during week 11 according to this.
Okay. So for those of you, when you do get your review dates, just kind of let me know. So the ones that will miss class next week, from Westerville, you guys will take the quiz the following week, okay? So you'll still technically be absent, but it won't be held against you, if that makes sense. So you'll take the quiz the following week. So you'll take quiz 2 and 3 or 1 and 2 together. Sorry, can't even. So you will be able to take your quiz. So don't think you won't be able to take your quiz. All right. So that was the topic that I wanted to talk about for attendance, because I do know that just really depending on when your live reviews are, for either Kaplan or ATI, right? Sometimes it can interfere with class time, which is completely understandable. So, and not anything for you guys to have to stress, about either. So, oops. All right, so with that, we are going to get started on chapter 4 and then chapter 12. Excuse me, did anybody by any chance look at chapter 4 or chapter 12? No?
Yeah, I looked at 12.
Okay. All right, so we will go through chapter 4 and chapter 12. I do have PowerPoint. If at any time you have any questions, you have any comments, feel free to, share your wonderful thoughts. So give me 1 second. The chat is Oyster Point or Orange Park is week 9. Okay. All right. Week. All right. Thank you. All right. I don't like the way they Zoom updated the new chat feature. It drives me nuts. All right. So I will share my screen so I'll share the PowerPoint. All right, so everybody should be able to see chapter 4 PowerPoint. So the evolution of practical nursing. So now, modern nursing, they're trained in educational programs, which is a combination of theory, of simulation, clinical labs, right? All the wonderful things that you've done over your time here in nursing school. And then after licensing, right, you are permitted to perform the job role as aligned with respective state regulations. Most regulations stipulate that LPNs work under the supervision of the RN or a healthcare provider. So that is, of course, going to depend on where you are working as to who you are going to report to. And, you know, whether it's in a hospital, if you're working in a doctor's office, right, you may report directly to the doctor. It really just depends on where you are working. So the first school of nursing was founded in Kaiserwerth, Germany, and back in 1836. And Florence Nightingale was one of the students. She attended for about 3 months, and everybody knows who Florence Nightingale is, right? Sounds funny. I actually met a group of students, not at Fortis. This was a while ago at another school, and they had no idea who Florence Nightingale was. And I was like, oh my goodness. And so we know that Florence is considered, right, the founder of modern nursing. And during the Crimean War, right, she nursed or she helped the doctors with her untrained nurses. And then she eventually established a school of nursing in England. She's written several books. The most famous book that she has written was Notes on Nursing. And so it's Notes on Nursing is very interesting. It's almost like reading her diary. So it's pretty interesting read. Her core belief, or Nightingale's core belief, was perfection of mankind. Nursing is a sacred calling, a commitment to work for mankind, not a business. She was against licensure likened to a union. She pushed for nurses to become respectable vocation. So that is one thing that, you know, there's lots of wonderful things that we can, you know, thank Florence Nightingale for. But she really pushed for nurses to be considered a profession, right? To be considered professionals. And a lot of her research and a lot of her work all revolved around that. Who's heard of nursing being a calling before? Has anybody heard that before? Okay. So when we think of nursing, and this is something back when I used to be on campus and I was, you know, nursing is one of those things, you really have to want to be a nurse. You know, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of stress, right? You're going to be you know, you see people at their, you know, on the best days of their lives and sometimes on the worst days of their lives, right? And it's often a very thankless job, right? The things that we do. And so in a huge sense, you know, nursing is a calling. It's not just, you know, although some people do, you know, usually wake up in the morning and say, I'm just going to go take care of everybody else for, you know, 12 hours a day and you know, forget about myself for a little while. You really, you know, when you think about everything that a nurse does, and somebody mentioned that they were a CNA for a long period of time, right? Okay. It's a lot of hard work. Think of everything that you've seen and done in your clinical experiences, right? Taking care of people is not easy. So when we say it's a calling, you know, most people have the, you know, innate desire in order, you know, to choose nursing. Because believe it or not, there's other jobs out there where you can make a lot more money and do a lot less work, right? Or work not as hard as you will in nursing. And so that's why we consider nursing a calling, right? It's a commitment. You know, you have to have that need, that want to take care of others and put others, you know, ahead of your own needs. When we look at nursing schools in the United States, the first nursing school in America was started by Pastor Fleidner of Germany. It was the Pittsburgh Infirmary. It's now Passavant Hospital. It is still in Pittsburgh. It's still there. And then as the nursing shortage continued, hospital-based nurses, schools of nursing emerged as cost-effective labor force for the hospital. So what they would do is, you know, you get your trade. It's like it was like all on the job, a lot of on to the, oh my gosh, on the job training. There was still, you know, education, and there were still some theory behind it, but a lot of the hospital-based nursing programs, you spent more time working on units and assisting with patient care, and that's how you received your education. And just, you know, think about it like when you go to clinicals, right? You know, get paid to go to clinicals, right? It's a learning experience. And so that's how those hospital-based programs started. There are still many hospital-based programs that are out there, depending on where you live, and what hospital system is nearby. So like HCA Hospital, which is really big, it goes, I know it runs from, I want to say like Maryland down to Florida. There's even HCA down in Texas.
HCA is
They-
international. I work for HCA.
Yeah. They bought Galen School of Nursing. And so Galen School of Nursing is associated with HCA. So there are still some of your hospital-based programs that are out there. The formal training, in 1893, we had the Ballard School that opened in Brooklyn, New York. The courses were 3 months. They focused more on home health care for chronically ill, the elderly, and children. Before World War I, most nursing care was done by practical nurses in the client's home. So, right, that home health services has been around for long periods of time. The nurses' 24-hour schedules included cupping, midwife roles, applying leeches, administering enemas. So, you know, though we have expanded that quite a bit, right? That was a lot of their initial their initial duties. Did you guys, has anybody I don't know if anybody ever read this anywhere, but you know, the hospitals used to run 9 to 5. So I can't remember when it changed. I mean, it's obviously been a very long time. It was probably somewhere during Florence Nightingale's time. But hospitals weren't staffed 24 hours a day. So even though there would be people that were sick and they would be in the hospital, medical staff, nurses, they would leave at the end of their workday, and those patients would be left in the hospital by themselves overnight. And they obviously had a very high mortality rate. So I want to say it was like oops, I want to say it was Florence Nightingale who changed that. But could you imagine just, you know, it's the end of my shift, I'm going home, I don't have anybody else to take care of you, so you guys are on your own until the next morning. So I always thought that was pretty interesting. By 1903, the states began to take steps that led to monitoring practical nursing. So organizations were developed, like your National League of Nursing, that developed that nationwide system of standardization of nursing requirements for practical nursing. And the state of Mississippi was the first one to pass a law that licensing practical nurses, right? So this is where, you had to apply to get a license in order to practice. Licensing wasn't mandatory at the time. But in 1938, New York was the only state required mandatory licensure. And of course, now we know that all states require mandatory licensure for nurses, including practical nurses. So I'll go back to that. Everybody's heard of the nursing compact license, correct? Have you guys heard of the compact license? So if I know the only state I'm not sure is Pennsylvania, but I know Ohio. Is Florida a compact state? Florida is a compact state. I know Virginia is. And so when you go to apply for your nursing license, you can apply for a compact or a multi-state license, which allows you to practice in other states. So if anybody decides they want to be a travel nurse, right, then you can travel to other states within the compact. And not have to worry about transferring your license. If you have a single state only license, so if I, had a Pennsylvania only license or a Virginia only license or a Florida only license, then you can only practice within that state. If you wanted to practice in another state, like let's say, like Pensacola, Florida, right? Is right there. It's a border town, right? So there's other states right there. So if you wanted to cross state lines and work in another state, you would have to apply for that other state license. So that's one of the benefits of the compact license. And it's
Pennsylvania just went active today.
who?
Pennsylvania just went active today with full implementation.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, they were holding out. There's still a couple states that are holding out. A lot of states, though, have realized the benefit of the compact license, especially with the nursing shortage. So it does make it nice. Of course, everybody, you still have to pass your NCLEX, right? Because you can't get the license without passing the NCLEX. So we do have to still do that. And that NCLEX is a national licensing exam, right? So it's the same test, whether you live in Maine, Texas, California, Florida, Washington State, everybody takes the same NCLEX. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I knew there was only a small amount of states that were not compact. I don't know what they're holding out for. It is very beneficial. And it makes it easier too. You think of people who like to not be in one place for, long periods of time. Like I want to live here for a couple of years and then go there, right? It makes you a lot more mobile. So that, thought it was pretty cool. When we look at task differentiation, has everybody heard of their Nurse Practice Act? All right, so the Nurse Practice Act in your state, right, it kind of just says this is what you can do as an LPN, as an RN, as a nurse practitioner, an advanced practice nurse, right? And so in 1944, the U.S. Department of Vocational Education conducted a comprehensive study of practical nursing. And so this is where they agreed on the tasks of practical nurses. And phrases were used to describe the LPN scope of practice. So judge, appraise, recognize, and determine. Sounds very much like that wonderful nursing process, right? That we all know and love so much. The Joint Committee on Practical Nurses and Auxiliary Workers in Nursing Services recommended use of the title LPN. And so LPN is licensed practical nurse in some states. I think it's California and Texas. I know Texas use LVN, which is licensed vocational nurse. All right, so it's the same job description, it's the same duties, they just have different names. And also, the Department of Vocational Education also differentiated the tasks of the RN and the LPN, including the LPN being under the supervision of the RN. And so the American Nurses Association, or the ANA, it moves towards 2 levels of nursing. It recommends that RNs graduate from a 4-year college program. LPNs graduate from a 2-year technical program. And so that was their, of course, initial recommendation. But, thinking about, with the nursing shortage, and the need to get nurses into the workforce, right? 2-year associate degree programs have survived as well. And so it gets nurses out there a little bit faster. It also, with a lot of places that you're working, once you get into, they will offer some sort of a tuition assistance, scholarship, something, in order for you to return back to school and get a higher degree, right? So whether it's an LPN going to get their RN, whether it's an associate degree RN to go get their bachelor's, right? Most places will offer some sort of tuition assistance. There's even some, which I think this is cool, man. I was like, maybe I should have worked in a hospital, that offered, what is it? I was gonna say tuition assistance, but it's not the correct word. We'll actually help you pay back your student loans. They'll give you like money back, like as for the time that you're working there, they will give you money to help pay back your student loans. So that is an incentive that some hospital systems are offering as well. So that, when you're out there shopping for the right job or the best position for you, look at some of the benefits that are available to you. And then with the assistant personnel is in the 90s. The UAP was hired to give patient care. The biggest concern when we look at assisted personnel was the legal responsibility for either the RN or the LPN, right? Because even though you, as the LPN or the RN, are, assigning a duty or a task to that unlicensed assistant personnel, you as the nurse are still responsible, right, for that task to be completed. So that is something, that's always been a concern, and that's why we follow those rules of delegation. And from here too, this is when we started seeing LPNs starting to kind of be moved from the hospitals into the community. So just for context, I've been a nurse for 25 years. I started off as an LPN. While I was in my LPN program, they were phasing LPNs out of the hospital and back into the community, into long-term care, into more your clinics, that kind of thing. So they were phasing them out of the hospitals. And I heard this even as, far back as 25 plus years ago, is that LPNs are eventually going to be phased out, right? Everybody was going to have to go back and get their RN, which is completely untrue, because we have come full circle, right? With COVID, we have LPNs that are coming back into the hospitals because the hospital systems realize the value of the LPN. And a lot of the hospital systems are going to more of a team-based nursing approach. Whereas if you're on a unit, you'll have the RN, the LPN, the UAP all work together, right? And they have their specific tasks that they need to complete. So LPNs still have a very, very strong role within the hospital system. The first computerized adaptive test, which was your NCLEX, was in 1994. Prior to computerized NCLEX testing, it was a paper test. Remember when my mom took her NCLEX, they only offered the NCLEX one time a year. And it was usually in June. And it was 2 days of 8-hour testing or 6-hour testing, one of those. I can't remember if it was 6 or 8. And it was all handwritten, and it was not multiple choice, but you would have like short answer, you would have essay questions. I'm trying to think of what else she told me. Oh, and you had to write care plans. And so if anybody has written a care plan, you know how treacherous those can be. And imagine having to write one just off the top of your head without any resources because they weren't allowed any outside resources. And they actually gave them a grade, like you got a grade on your NCLEX. It also took sometimes up to 6 months to get their test results because they had to be hand graded. But they were allowed to work as, graduate nurses until they got their NCLEX results. Obviously now with the computerized testing, you get your results usually the next day, right? And you know whether you passed or failed. In 1996, long-term care certification became available to LPNs. And so there are other certifications other than long-term care that are available for LPNs. The goals of the associate degree programs were to move nursing education out of those hospital-based programs to help ease the shortage by shortening the amount of time required to become an RN. And so since we've had like more of, schools like Fortis that have popped up as well with some of the more condensed accelerated programs, right? To kind of help people get their, their training, their education in a shorter amount of time. The NLN vision statement recognizing the role of the LPN in advancing the nation's health, that of course helps to support the role of the LPN. And then, like I said about COVID, everybody remembers COVID. It's still very fresh in a lot of people's minds, right? The stress and things that were around during that time. And if, like I know Jory was a CNA, I'm sure, during COVID. It was not an easy time for nurses, and it just contributed more so to our nursing shortage because a lot of people decided that they were going to leave nursing after, during and after COVID, just because of the working conditions that were experienced during that time. And so it definitely has opened up a lot more positions.
I worked in one
for-
facility that tried to hand me a jean jacket as COVID protection.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how, I worked a unit during COVID as well, and it was very not, it was not cool. And, walking around in isolation gear for your full shift, not having the supplies that you need, it was a lot. It was a lot. At one point, I think I want to say it was either FEMA or the Red Cross had delivered some isolation supplies, and instead of those paper isolation gowns, they sent plastic ones that literally felt like you just put a plastic bag over your body, and our AC wasn't working. It was horrible. And a lot of, of course, I had it easy compared to a lot of nurses in a lot of other states, right? compared to, you know, some of the conditions that they were working in. So I'm not complaining about that because, like I said, I had it easy compared to a lot of other places. But it was still a lot, and it was still, you know, we still lost a lot of nurses, a lot of good nurses. It was, you know, they just walked away from the nursing profession. Um, and so here we are, you know, 5 years later, and we still are in the midst of a huge nursing shortage, and needed to make sure that we are producing nurses that can go out there and fill those voids. All right, so any questions on chapter 4? All right, so let's go ahead and take a break, and then we'll knock out chapter 12. Be back at 4:40. the nursing process.
You can't help grandma teach right now.
All right, welcome back. All right, so next up is chapter 12. So chapter 12 is the all about the wonderful nursing process, which I know everybody loves the nursing process. Really awesome, 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 awesome. All right, so let me share my screen. All right, so you do have access to these PowerPoints. They are in the announcements in Canvas. So you have them, and then I will post the orientation PowerPoint as well. So the nursing process was established by the American Nurses Association as a 5-step process. And it is a problem solving format, which I know everybody has used the nursing process throughout their time in nursing school, but it was designed to organize thinking so that the problems encountered by clients could be anticipated as well as solved quickly. It also provided an organized way to identify and respond to client needs within their scope of practice. And it's, helps us to communicate with other nurses as well as caregivers. And so the nursing process from LPN scope of practice, gather data, which is your assessment, right? And then the nursing diagnosis is completed by the registered nurse. Planning is done in collaboration with the RN. And then of course we have our interventions, which are what we are going to perform in order to help our patients achieve their goals. And then the evaluation helps to provide identified findings to the RN. And so we all have a huge part within the nursing process. And when we look at, ways for us to identify and respond to client needs, right? We're looking at the physiological needs, we're looking at psychological needs, social, spiritual, right? So it's a holistic approach to caring for that client. And so the difference between the two roles when we look at an LPN versus an RN. The RN can function independently in all 5 steps of the nursing process, right? So the assessment, the planning, the assessment, the diagnosis, the planning, the interventions, evaluation. The RN can perform all 5 of those tasks independently. The LPN can act independently in data collection and implementation. All right, so RN can do all 5 steps. LPNs can do data collection, implementation, and then with planning and evaluation, they have a dependent role, right? You're going to work with the RN in order to complete those tasks. The RN will always do the nursing diagnoses. So when you look at gathering data, all right, and I'm going to stop sharing for a second. So when we're gathering data, what is subjective data? Tell me what subjective data is.
That's what the patient basically tells us.
Right. It's the information that we're getting from the patient. We could get it from family members, caregivers, right? so it's something that is being told to us, right? I have a headache, my stomach hurts, right? The tip of my finger hurt, right? And I'm ringing in my ears, I'm seeing double, all of those things. What the patient is telling us. What is objective data?
Things you can actually physically see or physically prove, like with their labs, if they've got jaundice, expect to see their labs like their AST and ALTs high.
Right, it's quantifiable, right? We can put a number on it, right? It's our vital signs, temperature, pulse, respirations, blood pressure, our pulse ox, it's our lab values, our x-rays, right? It's things that we use our senses, right? Their skin feels warm, the wound has a foul odor, right? These are things that we can quantify. And so when we're gathering the data, we are gathering both subjective and objective data. And what is the importance of gathering this data? Why is it so important to get all of this information?
For a holistic approach?
Right. Okay. So it's for a holistic approach. But what do we do with this information? What do we do with the data that we are collecting?
So we can
Some
figure out
more
how to take care of the
diagnosis.
patient, like the plan.
Say that again.
So we can figure out how to take care of the patient, the plan of care.
Right. So we figure out how to take care of our patients, right? Because all of that information that we're gathering from our patient, where the RN is going to use that to develop the nursing diagnoses, right? We're going to prioritize their needs. And from there, we're going to go through the planning, the implementation, and the evaluation phase, right? So it also provides a baseline of information, right? So if we have a baseline of information, right, then we know if something gets worse or something starts to get better, right? So we collect data on pain and patient tells you that they have, a 10 out of 10 pain. All right, we know that that's a high priority. And we have that documented. We give them something to help their pain, right? We go back and we reevaluate and we look, is it, what's their pain level now? Is it a 1? Is it a 2? We're hoping it's less than 10, right, at this point. But it gives us a baseline so that we know if something is getting better or getting worse. It also get this data, we can compare it with what is in their medical records. Again, baseline data is super, super important. And then we have to learn how to document. So depending on where you are working, what type of a documentation system you're using, what type of EMR system you're using, is going to determine how you are going to do your documentation. And there's a bunch of different EMR systems out there. What are some barriers to just think about your clinical experiences? What are some barriers to data collection? What do you think are some barriers that would prevent us from collecting appropriate or effective data? That's the word I want to use.
Language barriers.
Language barriers is a big one, right? If we don't speak the same language, right? That could definitely be a barrier. What else?
Religion.
Religion. Religion and cultural differences are also very important to remember when we are collecting data. Not having enough time, right? Ever hear nurses saying they don't have enough time? Can't imagine, right? But not having enough time to really spend and get the appropriate amount of information can also be a big barrier.
Sorry.
I don't mean to spread it on you.
Another barrier is going to be personal bias. What's personal bias?
In the United States. Catfish are a very diverse group of great fin fish with some.
What is personal bias? It's how you feel about certain things, right? Whether it's procedure, whether it's certain diagnoses, whether it's a prejudice or a stereotype, right? That also can be a huge barrier to collecting data. So these are things that all need to be taken into consideration. Only the RN, again, remember, can develop the nursing diagnosis, the goals, the interventions, and the LPN will collaborate with the RN. Tell me about goals. How should goals be written?
Smart.
Smart goals. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Measurable.
So what,
They should
okay,
be
measurable,
time bound.
attainable, right? Time bound, very good. So, you know, you wouldn't expect a patient who just had a quadruple bypass, right, to be, you know, running a marathon in a week, right? So we have to make sure that the goals that we're setting for our patients are realistic, they're attainable based off of their condition, as well as, you know, the desire to achieve the goals. Measurable. We should have both short and long-term goals, right? Short-term goals can be, as you know, will be accomplished, you know, as little time as an hour or a couple hours by the end of the shift, right? By discharge. Whereas long-term goals, they could be longer. They could be, depending on the setting, could be, you know, months from now. But we want to, you know, we want to give them want to make those goals both short and long term and find a way to measure them. Who should be involved in, you know, we talked about the nursing aspect of it, right? The LPN, the RN need to collaborate in setting needs, but who else needs to be involved in this process?
The patient and their family.
The patient, right? Absolutely, right? Because they're the center of this care plan, right? If you, you know, set a goal for them to, you know, achieve something within a specific amount of time, they need to know about it. They need to be and have some say in that process as well, because they're ultimately the ones that are going to need to fulfill that goal. So they need to be involved in that process. When we look at nursing diagnoses, everybody has seen a nursing diagnosis. We use NANDA, right, which is, you know, lists our nursing diagnoses for us, the North American Nursing Diagnosis Association International. And that just provides that common language for us to communicate with one another when we're writing these. And so, you know, the RN should use approved nursing diagnoses. And so that's kind of where we get them from. And so I will share my screen again. So we have an example here of a nursing diagnoses, or nursing diagnosis, as well as some problems. So nursing diagnosis, altered nutrition, eating less than the body needs. So the nursing problem was the client only eats 5% of each meal, related to loss of appetite and weakness. So outcome, we want them to eat 1,500 calories of ground foods and drink 2,000 mLs of liquids during each 24-hour period by day 10, right? So obviously, if they're only eating 5% of their meals right now, we're not going to have them eating, 100% by dinner time, right? So we need to be very realistic with this. So some of the interventions offered were, small, more frequent meals, right? How many, think about it. Like I know I'm one, I don't like to eat 3 big meals a day. For one, just eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I feel more tired and sluggish if I eat 3 meals a day versus if I eat smaller meals throughout the day, right? I don't get that like spike in my blood sugar and the crash and all of that stuff. Plus, you don't feel like you just ate a like Thanksgiving dinner, right? And you feel real sluggish afterwards, right? So offering small, more frequent meals. Also, who went to a long-term care facility for any of their clinicals? So in nursing school, anybody? Got a couple. So a long-term care nurse. One of my biggest pet peeves, and my CNAs will always tell you this. Who, I get it as a mom, right? Breakfast in bed every once in a while is not a bad idea, right? Bring me my breakfast, my cup of coffee in bed. But who wants to eat breakfast in bed, lunch in bed, dinner in bed every single day, right? Or, not offering oral care first thing in the morning, right? Think about how when you wake up in the morning, your mouth's all dry. And especially if you're a mouth breather, it's really bad. And then we're sticking a tray of food in front of you and we expect you to sit there and eat it, right? So, making sure that they have oral care, get them up out of bed, sit them in a chair. These are things that help to promote eating. Allow the person to do as much for themselves as possible. We know that there are people out there that need assistance with feeding, and that's perfectly fine. But let them do what they can for themselves. Right. So the 6 meals, or the 6 small meals, getting them up in a chair, right? Encouraging self-feeding. I'm throwing in oral care because oral care is a huge part of that. And then same thing with offering fluids, right? Varied choices. What are their favorite things to drink, right? We know that, things like Jello and ice cream are also considered fluids, right? So, they don't just have to sit there and sip on a cup of water, right? We can offer some of their favorite beverages to help increase their intake. By knowing their preferences, that does help. And that's all information that we are going to get, right, when we do our data collection. And so when we're looking at collecting the data for with this one patient, right, we want to know how much they're taking in, the amount type of liquid in milliliters, how much food that they have taken in with each meal, right? And that's where, we, get to do our evaluation, right? The goal is to have them eat 1,500 calories of chopped food and drink 2,000 mLs of liquids each 24-hour period, right? And then we look at our evaluation. Did they do it? So by day 10, the client was able to consume 1,500 calories in ground meals and 1,600 milliliters of liquids during a 24-hour period. They didn't consume the 2,000, right? They only consumed 1,600, but that's better than what they were consuming before. And that's the wonderful thing about the nursing process is it's ever evolving, right? We can change as we need to, change and adjust as we go. Talked about NANDA. And then care plans. Anybody written a care plan? So some go with care plans, some do concept maps. Care plans vary. A standardized care plan, they're based on, the best possible options for nursing diagnoses. An individualized care plan is tailored care plan that meets the specific needs and goals of the individual. So I'm gonna stop sharing. So what's the difference? All right, so in an electronic medical record, so an EMR system, all right, there are care plans that will automatically generate as you are entering your data for that client, okay? And with that, it will also standardize a list of interventions that are going to, match those nursing diagnoses. Standardized care plans are a good resource, okay, but it doesn't always necessarily address the needs of the individual, right? And that's the whole goal of a plan of care, is that it's individualized to that client, right? You can take a standardized care plan and then, you know, tailor it a little bit so that it becomes an individualized care plan, right? You're going to look at the interventions and see which ones are going to be good for your client versus, ones that are not going to be effective. So you want to be really careful and know the difference between the standardized and the individualized care plan. Because, you can have two patients that come in, and since we have a lot of OB nurses, that want to be OB nurses, right? You can have two women that come in and give birth, right? And are going to have two completely different experiences, right? Nothing is the same with your patients. And so that is why, we want to individualize those care plans and be very specific to each patient. We also have multidisciplinary or collaborative care plans. And you'll see these in hospitals, did a lot of these in long-term care. These work well in settings where staff from different professions and disciplines are involved with the client. So working in long-term care, I worked mostly in skilled care and rehabilitation, right? So we did a lot with PT or physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, social work, right? Discharge planners. In some cases, worked a lot with hospice. And so that care plan had to include all of those. Dietary has a space in care plans as well. Your dietitian will come in and they will evaluate their patients once they're admitted, right? Not only looking at food preferences, right? But we're looking at what their BMI is, right? So that if they're underweight, right, then we get them the appropriate amount of calories. We know that when patients are sick or have had trauma, burns, right, their metabolic rate is increased, right? So they need an increased amount of calories. And so, of course, dietary is going, your nutrition services is going to have a huge part in the care planning of those clients as well. So, depending, respiratory therapy is another specialty. They will have a part on the care plan. So multidisciplinary care plans are all, something that you may also work with. I forgot what I was gonna say. I just blanked. I apologize. I was like really on a roll and then I just blanked. So yeah, so you're gonna work with, depending on where you work, you're going to obviously work with other people other than nurses. What's also good, it's a very good communication tool to use from turnover, right? So a lot of nurses work 3 12-hour shifts, right? Some work 3 12s in a row, then they're off for a few days. Other nurses may space out their 12s and do like every other day. It just depends on where you work. Some facilities still have 8-hour shifts. But regardless, you as a nurse are not going to be on site 24/7. So this care plan or the plan of care is a way for us to communicate to other members of the healthcare team what is going on with your client or with your patients. And so a lot of wonderful information is shared on that care plan. And so I remember back in the day, they were computerized, but we weren't able to add in anything on them. So the care plans were printed out, and we had binders on our unit with care plans. Like we're talking like the 5-inch binders with everybody's care plan in it. And anytime there was a change, you had to go and you had to manually write it on the care plan, so that the next time that the nurse would come and update the care plan, she would, be able to type it in and reprint out the care plan. So things have changed a lot over time, when it comes to how we perform some of our duties as nurses. And then we have our outcomes, right? So outcomes, just like that patient who maybe they're not drinking the 2000 mLs of fluid, in the allotted time, but 1600 is still pretty significant. And that just helps us, right? We can go back and we can look at our interventions, we can look at our goals, and then we can adjust them, right? It's ever evolving process, where, we're going to adjust the nursing plan of care so that we assist our patients in meeting their goals. So a lot of, and concept maps are cool. Anybody like concept maps? No. Very honest. Latrice had a smile and she was like, no. And she was like, nope. It really just kind of depends. Some people like concept maps versus care plans. And I think it just has a lot to do with how you learn and how you think. For me, concept maps are too unorganized. Okay, so my brain does not function like that. I prefer the care plan, like take one step at a time and write it out, versus a concept map. It really just kind of depends. Concept maps can be really good, especially for people that, are very, I don't know the word is. I would say almost more artistic, because they just can visualize that a lot better. So it's just different for everybody. Either one works fine. The, care plans are, something that, um, I'm once I, got into nursing practice, didn't spend as much time writing care plans, as I did in nursing school. There are, generally speaking, depending on where you're working, there is going to be someone that is going to be assigned to work with care plans. So for example, in the long-term care facilities that I worked in, our care plans were primarily maintained by our MDS person, which is a state assessment process. They maintain the care plans along with the social worker. And so we provided input to the care plans, but they were maintained by another separate nurse, like a care manager. And a lot of times, you may go in and you may update care plans, you may look at the interventions that are placed, and you're going to, of course, collaborate when we're looking at those care plans. But writing one from start to finish, may not be part of your job description. Again, it's really just going to depend on where you are going to work and what you are going to do. All right. So any questions on chapters 4 or chapter 12?